We're turning our attention to a troubling surge in violent home invasions across the Greater Toronto Area, an alarming trend that's left communities shaken and demanding answers. In Vaughan, a father of four was tragically gunned down in his own home in front of his children during what authorities are calling a targeted robbery. York Regional Police report three masked intruders forced their way into the house before fleeing with valuables and urge the public to comply with a home intruder and not fight back.
In the unlikely event that you find yourself the victim of a home invasion, we are urging citizens not to take matters into their own hands. While we don't want homeowners to feel powerless, we urge you to call 911 and do everything you can to keep yourself and loved ones safe until police arrive and be the best witness possible. This could mean locking yourself in a room away from the perpetrators, hiding, fleeing the home, but don't engage unless absolutely necessary. But as it stands, we know the best defense for most people is to comply, as you've just heard, a number of safety recommendations.
Meanwhile, recent raids in the Peel Regional Police under Project Night Train dismantled a criminal network responsible for a shocking string of invasions and jewelry store heists across Mississauga and Brampton. These incidents have prompted calls for reform from political figures. Premier Doug Ford, visibly emotional, condemned the violence as sickening and laid the blame on a criminal justice system.
This is where society's gone, folks. They're defending themselves now. If you have a gun and you're a hunter and someone's coming into your house to kill your family, they're gonna defend their family, and they should be exempt. You go to root cause. It's not them coming into the house. It's ridiculous. You know something? I have a saying for the folks that are defending their homes. I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And unfortunately, my friend Aleem is going to be carried by 6 because he's trying to defend his family. It's a disaster right now in the justice system, and I'm going to be all over the federal government, just all over them. It's disgusting.
I'm now joined by our contributor, David Clement, to dig deeper into the rising public safety crisis. Now, David, Premier Ford has blamed weak bail laws as allowing violent offenders back onto the streets too easily. Is there merit to this argument, and where are the gaps in the system?
So there is, and I can use three kind of prominent examples that kind of highlight the Premier's concern. They're not necessarily all in Ontario, but it's a national criminal justice system. So in Toronto, in the West End, a man who was out on bail stabbed an individual and murdered them. An instance where he's out on bail. He had faced over 115 charges in the past. That raises questions of why violent repeat offenders are let out. There was the hammer attack murder in Kelowna, where a man allegedly murdered his ex-wife and violently harmed another person. He had been arrested. He was in custody that day and had been let out. There was a gang-related shooting in the GTA. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but a bunch of illegal firearms were shot, and 12 people were arrested, and I think approximately 6 of them were were out on bail and were further charged with violating the conditions of bail. So I think the Premier has a point, and he's not the only Premier to point this out, is that we're seeing consistently when we see these crime headlines, let's say in print media, where almost always you see was also charged with violating their parole or violating conditions of bail, which means they were out on bail. And so it really has started a national conversation in terms of what's appropriate. When should someone be denied bail or kept in custody awaiting trial? And the hard part here is that, like, you're innocent until proven guilty, but there has to be a public safety aspect of this where if you have a violent repeat offender, yes, they're technically innocent until proven guilty, but at some point community safety has to be in the equation. And there are, those are just 3 examples. There are plenty more where individuals are either waiting sentencing or let out on bail, and they convict or they commit another heinous act. And so that's, I think, the conversation that is being had right now.
Well, someone else who's weighing in is Pierre Poilievre. Yesterday at a news conference, he discussed the home invasion in Vaughan, Ontario, calling the Liberals and the laws that allow criminals back on the streets basically just blaming the Liberals for that. Here's what he had to say.
Liberal laws turn criminals free on our streets again and again and again. The Liberals have known this for years. Police officers, mayors, community groups have been crying out for an end to the Liberal catch and release criminal justice system. And yet Mark Carney, who's been Prime Minister for 5 months now, decided to go on vacation before ever reversing those laws, and made an even bigger mistake in appointing Sean Fraser as his justice minister, a man who first ruined the immigration system as the immigration minister under Trudeau, and then ruined the housing market as a housing minister. And to give him a third chance to screw something up, Carney has put Sean Fraser in charge of this. It's no wonder crime is raging out of control. My message is that we want to end the Wild West, lock up the criminals and throw away the key. 3 strikes, you're out. You 3 violent offenses, you go to jail and you never get out.
So, David, what do you make of Poilievre's comments here? And do you think that the blame falls on the Liberal government?
Well, I mean, violent crime since 2015, which was when former Prime Minister Trudeau and the Liberals took office, is up 55%. And so that includes a variety of different violent crimes, but those are the crimes that are the most serious and involve harming other people. So, yeah, I do think that this is a record that unfortunately the Liberals have to own. Mm-hmm. There are discussions in Ottawa that some sort of criminal justice plan is going to be put forward by the Carney government. And my assumption, based on how the Prime Minister has conducted himself so far, is that it's going to attempt to address some of these issues in terms of bail. But until that's done, we keep seeing these examples where not only is violent crime up, but we have repeat offenders committing these violent acts.
Well, there are premiers like Danielle Smith and Doug Ford, as we saw, saying that fighting back is expected when someone is breaking into your home. Pierre Poilievre has called it the Wild West. But then we have the York Regional Police, for example, saying that if someone breaks into your home, you should comply. What sort of issues could this lead to by offering different reactions for what people should be doing?
So the idea of complying implies that you understand the intent of the intruder. And how can you know that when they break into your home? So obviously you're not, if the intruder's goal is to hurt you or kill you, you should not comply.
Right.
If the intruder's goal is to steal belongings, then yeah, depending on what they're stealing, that would be a personal choice in terms of whether or not it's worth fighting for. But how are you supposed to know that when someone punches through your front door window and unlocks your door? And so the idea from the police chief to put the onus on citizens to try and make that interpretation is particularly difficult. Now, that does also have an inverse effect. And so when we talk about things like castle law, basically in line with what Pierre Poilievre is suggesting, right? The ability to defend your house and your property if people break into it. The example I gave you goes the other way, right? Criminal lawyers on Twitter have been putting out examples. So a man drunkenly walks into the wrong house. Would it be justified to murder that person or use violent force?
Right.
Not necessarily. Another example where things get complicated. Teenage daughter sneaks her boyfriend in, and the parents don't know that he's there. All of a sudden, there's a strange man in the home. Is that an invitation to engage in violence against the boyfriend? It's complicated. It's incredibly difficult to create a legal framework when it comes to someone entering your home that isn't full of complications. But what I can say is that in a lot of instances, we've seen people who have defended themselves have to go to court to prove that their use of force was reasonable. And that, for a lot of people, rubs them the wrong way. Because again, how are you interpreting the intent of an intruder? I don't know when someone breaks into my home if they just want to steal my stuff or if they want to hurt myself, my family, my kids, etc. And so that's the gray area that I think is really lacking in terms of whatever happens next, is that should the onus be on the homeowner to interpret the intent of someone who's just broken into their home? And I would probably argue that no, it shouldn't.
Mhm.
Does that mean that violent force is justified in all instances? No, and the courts now have a reasonability kind of expectation. But ultimately, no, I don't think that it's appropriate to put the onus on the individual in the home, like the police chief has suggested, because you ultimately don't know
Right.
what they're going to do, and if they're there to harm you or to harm your family, it would be wise not to comply, because the ultimate end of that is you have a father being killed in front of his kids.
Well, David, thank you so much for the time today, and thank you for breaking that down.